Well, g'day everyone. So, what does it take to race a motorcycle at the highest level before you even know how to drive a car? Well, that's a question that I asked recently of Kristian Daniel Jr. And today I'm joined by him. Kristian is one of the most promising young road racers to come out of the United States, maybe in a generation. At just 15 years old, Kristian is already racing on some of the most iconic tracks in the world. Mugello, Jerez, the Red Bull Ring. All of this is part of the Red Bull Junior MotoGP Rookies Cup. Now, the Rookies Cup is the first step on the ladder towards MotoGP stardom. It's an incredible competition. Tens of thousands of kids apply for this competition every year, and they only accept 11 kids. Think about that for a moment. This has been the same proving ground that many of Kristian's heroes, such as Jorge Martin, Pedro Acosta, Joan Mir, and of course Marc Marquez, have proved themselves on their way to MotoGP level racing. But Kristian's journey didn't just start on those tracks. It began much closer to home, on go-kart tracks and mini-moto circuits in Southern California. His father, Kristian Sr., a racer himself, introduced him to bikes at a young age, and it was immediately clear that this wasn't just a hobby. It was an obsession, precision, raw talent at full throttle. From the early days in the Avale scene, Kristian rose fast. But what stands out isn't just his speed. Like a lot of these young racers, it's immaturity on and off the bike that always impresses me when I meet these kids. His understanding of racecraft, his physical discipline, and his mindset. He trains already like a pro, thinks like a pro, and competes like a future world champion. Now he's part of the elite Dorna talent pipeline, and Kristian spends most of his year in Europe chasing milliseconds and gaining experience in this fiercely competitive field, often thousands of miles away from home. So in our conversation, we're going to get into all of it. How he manages life on the road as a teenager, what it's like racing under pressure with the eyes of MotoGP world on him, how he prepares physically and mentally for back-to-back weekends of racing, and what he's learning from being part of a global paddock at such a young age. This is more than just a racing story. It's about what happens when talent, discipline, and sacrifice come together early in life. And it's a rare window into the making of a professional athlete long before the lights go out on a MotoGP grid. So let's get into it. Let's go meet Kristian. Kristian Daniel Jr., welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you. Yeah, super nice to have me here. Honestly, it's I love doing podcasts because I like talking to a lot of the fans and obviously people who love the sport a lot. And I mean, obviously, you've been following me for a little bit, for a pretty long time. You've been following Cormac for a long time. You've been following a few people in my circle for quite a long time. So it's really nice to finally talk to you.
Yeah, well, it's an honor. It's an honor to talk to you, honestly. You helped me regain my youth when I meet young riders like you. And, I've been thinking a lot about this. And, you're one of a small group of American riders that has a real shot. And we haven't had that for a long time from the US. It's been since maybe some of the old guys that are even older than me. Ben Spies, I think, was the last MotoGP rider to come out of the US. Although we obviously have Joe in Moto2. So, Yeah, it's great to meet you and hear about your journey. And I know you and your dad have been grinding hard. So where are you right now, Kristian?
Well, right now I'm actually in sunny Barcelona, enjoying a little bit of the weather before we go out to Mugello for the next race. And I'm basically just doing some preps, riding the 600 and karting tracks because there's like a million here in Barcelona. But yeah, enjoying the sun.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so remind me, you're riding in the Red Bull Rookies Cup right now in Europe. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm riding in the Red Bull. Well, they like to put it as like the Red Bull MotoGP Rookies Cup. That's like the full name, but yeah, that's the championship I'm racing in right now. Which basically we race in almost all of the European rounds, side by side with MotoGP, and we kind of just get a lot of exposure and we try to win a championship.
That's fantastic. So you've got role models running around the paddock everywhere. Well, I suppose like before we sort of wind forward, it'd be cool just kind of to wind back a little bit because I know that you've been riding for a long time. And I'm really curious, like, what was your sort of first memory on a motorcycle? Was there something that really hooked you?
Well, I wouldn't say it was necessarily me being on a motorcycle, but I'd say it was the first time I went to a MotoGP race. So I went to a MotoGP race when I was 4, Austin, Texas, and I was with my dad, and my dad he's a super fan. Still is, but he was more back then, because he didn't have to pay an incredible amount for all the racing I've been doing so far. But basically, that was the same year that Marquez had won his first race in Austin, Texas in MotoGP. It was super special because I had got to see him. I wouldn't want to say I met him, but I saw him in person and I took a photo with him. And I think that kind of just sparked what started this journey because, I don't know, meeting someone that energetic and that young, it really like inspired me to do what he's doing, and I guess I just love speed. I gotta say that every time I hop on a new bike, it feels amazing, So, yeah, I think that was the first initial spark for me that started this career.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's a great memory to be there for his first race. I was in Austin actually this year for MotoGP, and we were going to hook up, but we didn't get around to it. You were pretty busy.
Yeah.
So it's great to make it now. And so you said your dad's a super fan. Is your dad ride track, race? What's his gig?
Well, basically what happened was let's say he just got, I don't know, he ran out of skill, basically. No, but he used to, and that's also kind of what got me into riding bikes a bit more, club racing back in the States. He used to ride at karting tracks, and I used to come with him, watch him when I was younger. And it got to a point where I started riding so much, I actually started beating him. He actually had to start trying. He started crashing, and then he was like, well, my body's too old to be doing not too old, but my body's not built to be like injured like this. And I think the last time he's been on a racetrack with me, like riding, I think it was in Apex when I was 8 or 9, and he high-sided and he broke his collarbone, and that was the last string for him. He was like, okay, I can't, I got to be a mechanic now, and just focus on that, and don't ride anymore. So yeah, he used to ride. I hope he does get back on it once I kind of make it to World Championship. He has a bit more free time or whatever. I do hope he gets back on the bike, but for now, he's like you said, he's on the grind. So
yeah, no, it's really interesting hearing both sides of the journey and the story. And as you know, we interviewed Kensei a few months ago, and very similar. Now, you mentioned Apex. That's the local track that you sort of grew up racing at in LA. Is that right?
Yeah, that's basically, it's a track where I've probably met Kensei the most at, and many other riders that I was riding with a lot in club racing, etc. in the States. And yeah, I think Apex, there's a few other tracks, but Apex was probably the main one.
Yeah, well, shout out to those guys because they're bringing some talent forward. Are they? Is that like a mini track or a karting track? It's not a full size racetrack, right?
Yeah, no, I'd say it's a karting track. That's for sure. But honestly, it's a really good developing track because there's kind of every type of corner there. There's a lot of hard braking corners, a lot of switchbacks, a lot of fast corners. So it has a little bit of everything. But I think it's like you said, Apex Center, and also shout out to John Hopkins. They're really, really trying to make the championship out their work. The Ovales and the import of Ovale So John Hopkins is really getting it set up with Apex Center. And honestly, what I saw, I went there in the wintertime. What I saw over there was, honestly, it could be a start of something that's super special. So I'm really happy that they're trying to build something so good.
Yeah, and now on that topic, I'm curious because, you and I talked offline a little bit about US talent, and we're going to get into that as we go through the podcast. But the Apex, and I'll put some pictures up here of the center. Do you see a lot of tracks like that in Europe? Like a lot of the kids growing up on tracks like that in Europe, or is it like quite rare in the US to see that type of development center essentially? Or
honestly, so in Europe you can see it everywhere. Like I gotta say, there's millions of karting tracks, and there's millions of, let's say, coaches, people who want to just teach younger riders or just make schools to group people. In the States, it's honestly there's not many people. I think there's one in Florida that might be out there. SL Mini GP. I know for a fact that John Hopkins is making the Apex Center work, which I'm super happy about. But yeah, there's not many things, and there's less kids like that. I think that's the biggest problem right now, is the fact that just there's not the difference between how many kids that are training out here like that in Europe is like it's worlds different to like the States. So it's not the same, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to unpacking that as we sort of get through the path, because obviously, you talked about Austin, and your sort of eyes came wide open to the sport. What sort of sports, were you doing before then? Would you say you're competitive? You're a competitive person, or do you do other sports still today? Like, are you the sort of person that's just always been into competing and winning, or did it just kind of happen by mistake?
No, I think honestly my personality's always been about competing, to be honest. I've always wanted to be like the best at everything I do. I think that's why I get quite frustrated quite a lot, like let's say playing video games. I get really frustrated because I want to be the best. And it's frustrating when I lose. But no, basically before racing, I tried BMX. I did that for about a year or two. I tried basketball. I tried piano. I tried a lot of things. So I was like into music for a little bit. And I mean, my dad, basically what he was trying to do, he was just trying to like get me off of the path of racing, like to see if there's anything else, because I was very set at a young age. But that was the only thing I had my eyes on. And the moment I had the age, and also the time was kind of right after I learned how to ride a bicycle, obviously racing BMX, my dad was like, okay, I give up. We can race. We can start racing now. So how old are you now? Yeah, now I'm 16.
Okay, right. Because you're talking about, at a young age. Okay, that's great. So it's interesting. So you're competitive. It's interesting you mentioned bicycles, because I always talk about bicycles. At the end of the day, it's a gyroscope, just like a motorcycle. And it wants to stay upright. It's the only thing that makes it fall over is what's the force on top. And I'm curious for you. So a lot of racers that I meet, regardless of age or level, I interviewed Matt Oxley a few months ago. Matt's one of the greatest, MotoGP journalists ever, Isle of Man winner and things. And he said to me, like, hey, man, racers at their heart are killers. They just want to kill everything on the track. But you get them off the track and they can be completely different. And I meet a lot of racers like you or Kensei, and I'm trying to imagine you guys as killers, but you know what I mean? Like, but when you're on the track, when you put that helmet on, that's what's on your mind, huh? You just want to win.
Yeah. I mean, I get to a certain extent. I mean, now my goals are kind of changing a bit. Like, it's not all about winning, I'd say. It's more about just learning, because, I mean, the end goal stays the same. I mean, I want to make it to MotoGP and win multiple championships. That's my end goal. So honestly, everything that comes before that is just learning process. And if you get a win along the way, then perfect. But there's many people that haven't won everything, but they've shown great prospects and arrived to MotoGP, and they're really fast. So yeah, I mean, I am a killer, that's for sure. I know I can beat everyone on the track when I have everything right at mind, and my feeling, the bike, when everything's correct. I know I'm a killer. So yeah.
When was the first time you felt like, hey, this is what I want to do? Like, not just a hobby. Like, do you remember the first time, what it felt like when you were like, hey, I think I want to make this my career?
I think honestly, the first time when I was really like, I want to make this my career was back in 2019, when me and my dad, we flew over to basically test with, or not a test, but it was like a wild card kind of, in a Metro Kit 50 championship, in a Catalan championship. And basically I rode a bike that I'd never ridden before because it was a race bike. It was race built, and the only bikes I'd ridden before were 50cc Hondas and a modified version of that 50cc. So obviously getting onto this bike, and I did pretty well. If I remember correctly, I did like P10 in the first race, and in the second one, I was second, and then I crashed out on the last lap. But I remember that that really made me say, I want to race again. And that was the first moment I think that I was really okay, I really want to race.
So that sounds like that was one of your first sort of aha milestones. And I'm sure there's on the path so far, there's been even more. You, as you think about some of your biggest milestones after that, what would be sort of the 2 or 3 that really stand out for you over the last few years?
I'd say one, a bit of a contrast to the wildcard I just talked about. It was the first race of the Spanish Mini GP Championship, which basically it was all around Spain, and all of the best people, all of the best kids kind of went there. So some of the people I'm competing in now in the Red Bull Rookies Cup raced in that Spanish Mini GP back then. And basically what happened was so you had to qualify for the race since there were so many people. And I remember I didn't I think I did qualify, but I was almost last. Maybe I was second to last, third to last. And I remember that day I got so mad and also just so many emotions that I wanted to win. But I still wanted to win, And I just remember being I need to work super hard so I can beat everyone here. I'd say that was another crucial moment. And probably the closest one to now had to be in 2021 when I won the race. It was in a category one step up. This kind of the same people. A few people left, but there's still a lot of the same people. So I won the race, and basically it was I don't know, it was something that I was holding for not for so long, but let's say for 2 years, of being last in that Spanish championship to beating those same guys that were winning the races. It felt really good for me. And that feeling of winning, I wanted to repeat that. So I think that was the closest one to now. And then since then, I've just been searching for that feeling over and over again.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, obviously you're obviously in some ways, you're kind of on that first step towards achieving your ultimate goal that many of you have, whether it be MotoGP, Stardom, or World Superbike, and that's a whole nother discussion because there's a lot of great paths for you. But in the US, before Europe, did you compete here as well?
I did compete, but it wasn't in road racing. I did flat tracking for probably all of the years. Road racing, I was just, like I said, I was riding a 50, and it was really just club racing, so at karting tracks, nothing too special. And yeah, I was racing a lot of flat tracks, so I have kind of a dirt round background, I'd say, because that was just what was more popular and still is more popular. But yeah, that's the only racing I was doing in the States.
Yeah, that's great. That's a pretty common thing too for a lot of great riders that come from flat track or dirt. Cormac Buchanan also raced speedway and flat track in New Zealand, and Kensei. I suppose it also speaks to the state of preparation and competitive opportunities for kids your age and younger here in the US. And it's something I've been trying to unpack with folks is, something happened between sort of the late 80s and now, where you went from US riders winning World Superbike and MotoGP titles, and also Aussies and Kiwi, even a Kiwi that won Mr. Crafar, who I've interviewed, Simon Crafar, who I've interviewed as well. And all of a sudden now the Spanish just dominating, it's just dominated by Spanish and Italians. And now you're, and that's a whole nother discussion, I suppose. But do you have any point of view on the state of youth development for the sport in the US? And obviously you've had to go to Europe to find yourself.
Do you mean your question is, do you think if I was still, do I think if I was still in the States and at this time, would I be at the same level or improving the same? Is that
more around access to opportunities to compete and get experience in the US? It seems kind of limited. I know there's things like the Junior Cup they're trying to work on, but what's your point of view on that?
There's probably two biggest factors in here that I'd say play a huge role. It has to be the first fact that you have to be a certain age to go on a big track. Also, that obviously applies in Europe also. Like, you can't be, let's say, 7 years old going on a big track. That's quite obvious. But the problem in the States, I don't know what the age limit is now, but you had to be at least, I think it was 14 or 15 or maybe even 16 to go on any sort of big track. So let's say you wanted to go to Laguna Seca or to Willow Springs, for example. You had to be a certain age. Whereas in Spain, they're racing on big tracks, MotoGP tracks, when they're like 11, 12. So I think it's the fact that they can just start off so much younger. Like, they have that immediate advantage of age. Because no matter how skilled you are, like, if you put in the work from a young age, it's really hard to catch back up in the future. And I'd say second, it's the amount of people in Europe that love racing, that, like, it's just much more. You know, the youth there's, let's say, if there is a camp of Europeans and a camp of Americans, right? There would be like maybe 10% of the Americans. 100% of the Americans is like only 10% in Europe, you know? So it's a super small amount. And for sure, if there was more Americans that were training together in the States, it'd be perfectly fine. But there's just not enough numbers. And then also the next thing is a lot of so let's say like Italians, for example, go over to Spain to ride with Spanish people. But like, let's say there's a lot of people in the States that they just stay to their training, if you get what I mean. Like, they don't go to, let's say, I don't know, if there's training in Nevada, then no one will go to Nevada. They'll just stay in their state and do their own training there. And I feel like if everyone came together in the States, it'd be much better and the adaptation would be much faster. But yeah, that's my main take. That's just the differences
that's really helpful. You know, Wayne Rainey and a bunch of other very prominent American riders and ex-racers have been trying to address that through things like the Moto America Junior Cup and the Talent Cup and all these various development programs. But really, what you're saying, I think, is you got to be in it to win it. So you move to Europe. That's a big journey in itself. Who are sort of like, as you've been growing, like, who are the people behind the scenes for you? Obviously, your dad, I've met with or spoken to, and who are the people helping you succeed? Because obviously, it's a big team effort. Yeah.
Well, honestly, it's not an extremely big team, to be honest. Obviously, my sponsors do a lot of work and they help so much. Like, they made everything possible. And I give all my thanks to all the sponsors that have been following me from the beginning. Like, let's say when they sponsored me from the States. I'll
put links to them up,
big people, one of the big people that have honestly kind of carried my path has to be Ansgari Nadal, my manager. He was the one who basically got that wild card back in 2019. So without him, it was kind of, I wouldn't have been in this situation. So he's really been following my path from a really young age, and he's still my manager. So through, like, let's say 7 or 8 years, we've been in contact, and I think he's probably the biggest, let's say, helper on my back, you know. And aside from him, my dad, I'd say equally or even more, because he's believed in me. And he's took the actual risk and spent the actual money. Like, the money's coming out of his bank. Yeah, I think those are the two main guys that probably have that good support that I am now, for the person that I am now. So
those guys they're hustling for you, and I suppose I know that your brother, your brother. So who else is with you in Spain? So your little brother's there, right? Too.
So actually, my whole family is. We all made the commitment. So my mom's here, my brother's here, and my grandparents are. We all kind of. I mean, it was not a matter of time, but I mean, it's good for a change of scenery and experience a new country. My mom's side of the family, they're actually from Bulgaria, which is Europe originally. And I guess you can say they feel more at home to a certain extent because they've lived there for a very long time. Yeah, I'd say it's really nice to have all my family here. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of people don't quite realize that I wouldn't call it sacrifice. I think it's commitment, but also an opportunity for the whole family to learn. And I see that with all of you guys. And so, okay, so we're great talk about your path so far. So Now, you're in Spain. You're in the Red Bull Rookies Cup. Tell me about that competition. It's for those that don't know about it. My understanding is that it's pretty hard to get into, right? Like 1 in 500 or something ridiculous like that get accepted. How did that all happen?
Yes, I'd say it's kind of a crazy story. So basically, yeah, it's exactly like you said. I'll kind of explain the tryout process and what kind of happens throughout the whole tryout for the Red Bull Rookies Cup. And basically what happens is they select about 5,000 people, 5,000 to 6,000 people, or maybe more. Sorry if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
But basically they have 3 days in total for tryouts. The first 2 days are for all the new people, so they separate them in groups. Basically, let's say there's 20,000 people that applied, that they send a letter to Red Bull saying, hey, I want to test. 5,000 get accepted, so it already narrows down there a little bit. Well, not a little bit, quite a lot. Then from there, from those 2 days, they select 100 applicants. Immediately narrows down to like, let's say, okay, these are the actual choices. And then from there, this year, the year I was selected, I think they selected 11 people. It's like when I got selected, I was honestly really amazed. I didn't expect myself to get selected, but like looking at it now, it's actually super difficult to get in there. So not that I was lucky, but I was showing what I'm proving now to Red Bull Rookies Cup, and I think they chose something that's is gonna help them in the future. But
yeah. No, I've been watching you, man. It's been cool.
Yeah, and basically, so me and my dad, we went in there because at that time I was 14 for the test, but my birthday is February 19th, so that's before the season starts, and you have to be minimum 15. So we were already kind of like, okay, maybe we might not get accepted, right? And that's completely fine because we have the next year, and I'm, super young, so there's no rush. I can get in there whenever I want, and it's all a learning process. So it'll come when it comes, and if it doesn't come, then perfectly fine, because there's riders that have made it there without Red Bull Rookies Cup. Basically, I mean, obviously, even though we weren't expecting to get in, we tried our best to get in, and to kind of just learn the process. I just remember the first day, because obviously that's the most stressful one, because that's to know like if you're even like acknowledged to get selected in. And when I got selected there, I was like, a lot of nerves left my body and a lot of nerves entered my body. Because obviously we had the test the next day. But yeah, then when I got selected, I was super happy. I didn't celebrate because I had a race weekend literally the next day. So like, I finished the test, which was on Wednesday. It was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then I drove to Aragon and rode on Thursday. So it was kind of like no celebration, straight into it, but the celebration was being able to ride. So it was all worth it. And yeah, I was super happy, super stoked. I couldn't not be. And the path's been pretty clear, and I've made it pretty far so far. So that's kind of what the selection process is.
Well, the thing that amazes me listening to you is that a lot of other folks I've met, like Cormac, for example, Cormac Buchanan, he got into Red Bull Rookies Cup, but like he had won like 3 New Zealand road racing championships and like podiumed in the Australian championships and was like a contender in that part of the world. And so he had this like racing background, and you have a background, but not that type of background. And so the fact that you can go to Spain and be competitive straight away, that's pretty cool. And I think the audience should understand that, and because that's pretty rare. You're competing with kids who have been racing since they were like 4 or 5 years old, right? Wow. Yeah. And so what exactly do you get when you turn up? What does Red Bull Rookies Cup provide you? What are the benefits other than being a select group of kids?
A Red Bull rider and whatnot. Honestly, there's a lot more than what meets the eye. I don't know if many people know about this, but they actually pay for that's basically the main thing. Like they pay for your riding, and then also they pay for basically the food when you're at the track. You do have to pay for like the flights and the hotels. But aside from that, they cover everything. So it's honestly a super huge benefit, and I'm super grateful that Red Bull is able to do this. But yeah, it's all a supporting championship. I mean, there's nothing that can be like, let's say, malicious about it. Like there's no, we'll have you selected here, but you have to do XYZ. Like this is just show your talent to the World Championship. And if you do good, like I think they did a statistic where there's 76 riders in every single class in MotoGP. in the World Championship that have came through Red Bull Rookies Cup. So that's like a super interesting stat because that just shows like that's at least 60% of the riders in all the World Championship. So it's a lot, you know.
That's a really interesting stat. I think a lot of folks who maybe are new to road racing who listen to the podcast, I think a lot of folks maybe don't always understand that, hey, this is not like being born with a silver spoon in your mouth and everything's laid out for you. This is privateer stuff. You're putting real money into it. And we're gonna talk about your sponsors later and put links to them. But one of the things I love about motorcycle racing is maybe unlike the four-wheel competitions, is that there's some great stories of sort of rags to riches. You know, yeah. I always think of Jorge Martin in that way. I really respect him because he's come up the hard way, man. And a lot of other sports, there's money, there's this, there's that. But there is still an opportunity for folks that maybe don't have all the fame and all the fortune to make a go of it. And I've seen that across the board, which is great. I'm wondering for you though. You are still in school, right? Are you balancing school and training and racing? Are you online schooling? What's all that? How does that work?
Well, so now school's actually it's over, and I guess you can say I took it all the way to the extreme. To being able to adapt to the European style and more so the Spanish style. I attend public Spanish school. This year I started online public Spanish school. So that was it was a bit of a big change, but I mean, it helped me a lot. So I have more time to practice and train. But yeah, for the past 6 years, I've gone to, Spanish public schools. So that's,
wow.
It's a hard balance. Obviously, if I don't want to say it like this, but if I could, I would want to make school a bit easier. At least for myself, because it's having to study and then also having to train and then having free time. Like, I'm not saying that sometimes I don't spend time in my day, like just on free time, but at the same time, I do want to enjoy my days outside of training, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a hard balance. It's a hard balance. I won't lie to anyone. Like, it's a pretty hard balance. But it is what it is. You know, if you want to be a racer, these are the things you gotta sacrifice.
That's a good topic. So like, it sounds like, there are things that you miss out on that maybe your friends don't, right? And so a typical week for you between sort of training and mental prep, nutrition, all of that, what does it look like for you?
Well, I guess I'll give you the busiest week. Let's say, so Monday morning would probably start off with a cycle, probably with Cormac. So we go cycling probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
You go riding with Cormac?
Yeah, a lot. Because he also lives in Barcelona. He lives up the road. Yeah. So, go cycling with Cormac. Get back home, stretch, like post-stretch, shower. In this sort of like block of time, usually what I do is A, study a bit, or B, kind of have a bit of free time. Or C, visualize depending if I have a race the next week. And then I have lunch. Then maybe about an hour later, after doing all this stuff, I have gym. Then I also go with Cormac. Then after that, I arrive home about at 8:30. I'm home. 8:30 to 8:40. I'm home. Then I do like a mobility that my trainer preps for me. So I do mobility. Then I brush my teeth. Go to bed around 10:30 to 11:30, depending on what I'm doing, etc. Next day, Tuesdays, there's not really many plans, but I usually go to karting tracks with my 600. 600 from about 10:30 in the morning to more or less 2 to 3 in the afternoon. Obviously it's not nonstop, but we don't stop for lunch. Like, we lunch after. So we have about like 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. I don't know how much time it would be on the bike. It's a good amount. It's good training. After that, get back home around 4 to 5, depending on how far the track is. Luckily, most of the tracks around here, they're about 1 hour, 2 hours away. Get back home, and depending on how I feel, depending on what my trainer puts, I usually go for a run or I go for a walk. And then after the run or walk, which probably takes about, if I run, it probably takes about in between 30 minutes to an hour. And then when I walk, it's probably an hour and a half. So I'll just take the running one. So after running, get back home, shower, then I'll go on homework, B, free time, C, visualizing. Kind of just do that until the end of the day. brush my teeth, go to bed, wake up again Wednesday. Usually I go for cycles on Wednesday with Cormac. If I were to see the face of my trainer, he'd tell me go on a super long cycle. So we usually go out around 11 to, let's say, like 3. 11 to 3, we stop places, so I'd say like 4. And that's kind of what my schedule looks like in a busy week.
Wow. Well, thanks for making the time for us. That's cool. And obviously,
Yeah.
you know, there's a few things that pop for me there. You're hanging out with Cormac. I suppose he's like, you know, he's a big coffee snob, right? So he loves coffee. So he's probably pouring lots of coffee down your throat. And then the Spanish like to have dinner really late too, right? Which is different for the US. Like they tend to like eat at like 8 or 9 or 10 at night and stuff. And have you kind of kept to your American culture of eating, or are you kind of fully European now?
100%.
Okay.
I mean, on top of that, like I do have a nutritionist also. So I have a trainer, and I have a nutritionist, and the nutritionist recommended that kind of the earlier I eat, the better. It's scientifically proven that it's better. So I eat around, let's say, like 7 to 8. It's still late, but I can get through it, you know? But yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Well, you know what I want to do next, though? Because you mentioned a couple of things that really I'm interested in personally, too. I want to get inside your helmet a bit now. I want to get inside the helmet because you mentioned visualization, and you mentioned it's interesting talking to you because if I had interviewed, for example, if I had interviewed you, one of the greats of the past, you know, in the 80s or 90s, I won't mention any names. But if I'd interviewed any of those guys who were at the top of the game, they were partying at night, out drinking, having fun. Like it was a completely different thing. And you guys now at your level, you're like Iron Man fitness, and not just fitness, but also mental fitness. And I'm a big fan of coaching. So I've done like the California Superbike School like 60 times now, and I've done Yamaha Champ School, which is a big school here. But Champ School talk about rituals. You know, you got to have a ritual. It's really important, but you also got to work on the mental toughness. And so let me get inside your helmet. Like you mentioned visualization. Like tell me about do you have rituals or superstitions that you have pre-race? How do you prepare mentally outside of just being a physical freak? being fit.
Well, I gotta say one thing for sure that's super important mentally to make me strong is it's something I've kind of learned through the process, but I've done mostly this year. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a foodie, but since I have to be super kind of restrictive on what I eat, when I do eat, I choose exactly what I want to eat. You know, like depending on the day or like what I'm doing. So it's important to have like those kind of cheat days to kind of relax your brain so you're not always on focus mode. But I'd say aside from that, one of my superstitions is probably training. In all honesty, like the harder and better I train, I feel like the more confident I am in myself, and the more belief I have in myself. But on top of that, I think one of the superstitions I have is, or let's say rituals, I visualize because that's basically like it's basically like getting extra track time. Because I've gotten to a point where almost realistic with my visualization, to where I even time, so basically I have a timer, and I time each lap, and usually it ends around maybe the exact time I want or the exact time I hit in a race weekend, maybe 1 second ahead or 1 second behind, 2 seconds, but it's always like super close because I'm really, really conscious about my mindset and especially the visualization part.
Yeah, that's oh man, this is so much to unpack here because I, as an amateur, old fat man in his 50s and riding in the A group in my local track here, the Ridge, I have a ritual. Like I decide, well, what corners will I pass on? What corners won't I? What's my plan? One thing I'm going to focus on for each session. And I find even as a fat old man, like the fitter I am, for sure, the lighter I am, the faster I am. Like it's just so cool, even at my age. And the stretching and all the stuff you're talking about. I watched Jorge Martin last season. It was really cool watching him, you know, closing his eyes, doing the visualization of the track. And so what's your thoughts on that? Is that the sort of thing you do as well, or is that just a Jorge thing?
No, honestly, it was funny because basically I do the same thing. I visualize in race weekends, obviously to kind of get my mind right, and before I go out in sessions sometimes, just if I don't do it all the time, but just if I need to clarify something in my brain, like, okay, let's say I want to fix a riding style or something I'm doing incorrectly, I visualize it 1,000 times, so when I go out on track, I've visualized all the scenarios. So it's like, okay, if anything happens, I kind of know how to counter that. Or at least I can try to do as much as I can to improve as much as possible. So it was funny because there's a lot of people that like they would look at me and I wouldn't want to say laugh, but they just look at it and be like, what do you like other writers? They'd be like, what are you doing? And it was like, I'm visualizing, this is what gets my mind right, and it's my ritual. And we, like, at the end of the season, after everything, like, after all the visualizing and everything we saw, like, I probably just saw the same video. It was Jorge Martin visualizing before he was going out. And me and my dad were just laughing. We were like, I mean, I guess we're just ahead of the game because our processes are much better than everyone else.
There you go. I love it. That's cool, man. And you don't want to tell anyone else either, but that's your thing. That's your secret. Keep that under wraps.
Yeah, I mean, it's what works for me. I mean, if it works for anyone else, they can also use it. I still think I'm better than them, so even if they use the same thing that I'm using, I'll still beat them.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah. So
awesome. There we go. We're getting it. This is great. And so, okay. So, how do you handle fear, crashes in particular, high pressure moments? I suppose that the visualization is part of it, but how do you handle fear?
I mean,
are you fearless? Well, what I mean is maybe there's for me, there's one track like Laguna Seca in the US. It's a track where I've had my biggest crash, right? As a fat old man at the track. And like when I go to Laguna Seca now, it's really hard for me to get that out of my head. Like for you, do you have those same sort of challenges or not?
To a certain extent. So, I mean, I've had a lot of bad crashes kind of everywhere now. But for example, Aragon last week, I had a pretty nasty crash, to be honest, in race 1. And it did affect me mentally, to be honest. That was the first time in a long time that I've actually been affected by a crash. Because the race in the morning the next day, I mean, also, my body just wasn't feeling it because I landed on my back and I kind of injured a inter rib. And that it kind of put me out of like check, I wasn't 100%. I couldn't warm up correctly. That's another one of my rituals. I love like warming up 100% and doing everything correctly. When I wasn't able to warm up, I was like, oh, it's like, something's wrong. And so I wouldn't say more than fear. It was just I wasn't in the right mindset. So yeah, I do think I'm pretty fearless most of the time.
It's you're obviously at such a different level than like 0.1% of the kids wanting to get into this, and so but you're also showing so much maturity around how you're approaching it, which I think is great. When you think about the challenge of like these smaller bikes, obviously even Moto3, junior MotoGP, Rookies Cup, it seems like a lot of the riders, obviously getting the right slipstream, the aerodynamics of the bike, all of those things are like almost more important than outright power. It's just they're all so close. But as you move up the classes, Moto2, MotoGP, you need to put on a bit of muscle. You got to be a bit stronger. It's just a whole physically different. Do you have a view yet as to what that is going to be, what that's like? Like, do you ride larger bikes at all? Are you allowed to ride larger bikes?
Yeah. So I train on a 600, CBR 600.
Double R or probably a race bike, right? It's race prepped or something, is it? Yeah. Okay.
No. It's actually, so it's funny. It's a stock bike that we bought and we basically prepped it ourselves. Yeah. So it's a CBR, but it's meant to be RR.
Yeah. Cool. Tell me about that.
But so I do ride bigger bikes, and I honestly can't feel it. I wouldn't want to say I'm a weight freak, but I do focus on my weight because I'm on a small bike, and I'm one of the biggest guys in the Rookies Cup right now, like tall wise. And aside from that, I feel like my body's just naturally built to be bigger. Like, let's say, I think my body's meant to be like maybe for football, American football, or like maybe not rugby, but like something physical, And honestly, like I always talk about this with my dad, I feel like I'm kind of restraining myself a lot, like my body, because let's say if I were to eat like everything I was supposed to eat, let's say if I were to be a American football, like super big, bulky guy, I could do that easily. But instead, I'm trying to be as lean as possible. So it does play a huge role, like how the energy and the weight you put into a bike. I would say that probably the biggest change is from Moto3 to Moto2 for sure.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the small guys from Moto3 that they rely on themselves being small and going fast because the bike carries them, kind of. In the Moto2, like you said, there's no slipstream, there's no extra stuff, so you got to be strong. And it's basically just you and the bike. There's no one else that can affect you. You got to be at the top of the game. And I'd say it does help me a lot when I train on the 600 because it really just shows me like I'm able to ride a bigger bike like much easier than a small bike, which is really funny. But it comes naturally. Like I said, I'm pretty big. I don't know. I think I'm 5'7" feet tall, 176 centimeters tall. So I'm pretty tall. I guess it's just all a matter of like how disciplined you are, like with your weight and what you wish to achieve, kind of, So what I'm trying to achieve, like I've realized because I've gone up in weight quite a lot since last year. I think I went up like 2 kgs more or less on average. And basically what that does is, yes, I do weigh more, but the thing is I have way more strength,
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to do a lot of things and it's easier to keep my mind clear when I'm stronger. But I have to play with that balance. I can't be 20 kilos over the weight minimum because there's guys out here that are super light. they weigh the same as me when I'm completely naked and they're with their suits on, So I got to keep that balance. That's for sure. And that's
you guys. Well, you have an invitation. I also invited Cormac, but you guys are not allowed to ride on these tracks because of your contracts, I think. But if you're ever in Seattle, you got to come to the Ridge, and I'll give you guys bikes to ride. I have 2 RS660 Aprilias in the garage. One of them is a Trofeo, which is the track only version, and I've got a V2 Panigale, which is a Moto America spec. So they're not street bikes. And so if you ever come here and you're allowed to, your sponsors let you, you're going to ride with me at the track and you can lap me as often as you want. I was riding last weekend, a weekend before last, and Kayla was there. Kayla Yakov was there.
She's fast though. She's really
She was
fast.
on a V2 Panigale. I was on my 400, but still it was fun to watch her. So your path, MotoGP, World Superbike, what is it?
MotoGP.
I think I know the answer. MotoGP. Okay. And tell me why.
Because I want to beat my idol.
Oh, here we go. Who are your idols? Hey,
100%.
there you go.
I mean, the first one I'd say is Nicky Hayden. R.I.P. to Nicky Hayden. But
rest in peace.
He's won one, so I gotta get one up. One also super interesting thing I didn't say throughout the whole podcast. Now that I actually brought up Nicky Hayden, so I actually met him when I was younger, also. So that was one of the things that sparked me as well while he was on Honda. So I met him and that really sparked something in me also. But basically when I first came to Spain, my number that I was repping was 69 because that's Nicky Hayden. And I was like, okay, I want to be the next Nicky Hayden. I want to be the next best American when there's basically no one left around. And basically people with 69, I don't know why, but there's a million people with 69. So then I was like, okay, well, obviously I have to choose another number. I had 11 for about a year or two because Ben Spies.
Of course, yeah.
Then I thought, Nicky Hayden is a really big idol, and I met him and stuff. And this was around the time like where he passed away and all that stuff. Basically, so now I'm number 70, and it's because I kind of want to get one up on him. That's kind of what it is. Like if 69 is that was the level he was at with 69, like 70 is one step further. So that's
cool.
That's kind of the backstory of my number, which is, I think is pretty cool. So yeah,
that's really cool. You can't see it here, but I have a behind me over here. I actually have a Nicky Hayden replica bike with him on it and the American flag flying. You can't quite see it, but
that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm right with you. And so we're going to get into some lightning round questions so you can go out for your ride. But so first one, favorite track. What's your favorite track? Jello, this next week. Yep. And good luck for that next week.
Thank you.
And Cormac, because I think I told you I'm sponsoring Cormac next week. So it's going to be this is going to be on his bike. Favorite bike? Okay. Dream team to ride for?
And what?
Dream. Let's just say dream team to ride for a MotoGP. Yamaha. They're on the way back. Best post race meal?
Five Guys with Cormac.
Five Guys. Awesome. That's great. And if you weren't racing, you would be
cyclist, runner, basketball player, football player, or like track runner or like something athletic.
You mentioned rugby before. That's clearly the influence of a Kiwi over there somewhere helping showed you some rugby maybe, yeah? That's a real game right there, my friend.
He plays a rugby game. I didn't think there was going to be a rugby game, but yeah, he has a rugby game. It's super difficult to play, but
yeah. I mean, it's I suppose before we go, I suppose also at your level, there's also things you're not allowed to do, right? Because you like I know with Kayla, for example, when I saw her at the track a couple of weeks ago, I said, "Hey, take my RS660 out for a ride." She said, "I'm not allowed to ride an Aprilia. I'm only allowed to ride Ducati because she's sponsored by Ducati, so she can't be seen on the track on an Aprilia, I think." But I suppose,
I am in the Red Bull Rookies Cup Championship, but I mean, I don't have the money to buy a Ducati, right? But I mean, I'd say the only thing that is contradictory would be, let's say, if I was with a Monster logo. That's the biggest thing. The bikes for now, I don't have any people saying, "Oh, you can't ride this bike." I can ride every bike. Good.
And you're not allowed to. I assume you only drink Red Bull.
Barely. My dad doesn't let me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hey, so we're going to put a link to all your sponsors and stuff up on the screen. But
awesome.
Where can folks go to learn more about you, contribute to your success? What are the Instagram, TikTok websites, all that stuff? I'll put it all up here too. But do you want to call any out now?
Yeah. So I'll say that my Instagram is KDGR _racing. We have KDGR _racing TikTok, KDGR _racing YouTube channel. I have a KDGR, I think it's called KDGR.com, which is basically my website that explains a bit about myself and adds on to the sponsors that you were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. And also we have Facebook, which is also KDGR _ kind of it's the same all over all the platforms. That's why it's a bit easier to just follow me everywhere. But those are the main platforms that I will be posting on most of the time.
Cool. So it's only the old people that are on Facebook, like me. But all the cool kids are on TikTok and other things. And so we'll make sure we get all the links up here.
Awesome.
It was really awesome hanging out with you. Good luck in Mugello.
Thank you.
Say hi to Cormac for me when you see him. And Kensei and his dad. I'm going to stop recording now, okay? And then I'll say goodbye.
All right.
I hope you guys really enjoyed this discussion with Kristian. He's an incredible young man. And if you like this content, do me a favor and write a review or two on your favorite podcasting platform. It's a pretty new podcast. We've been on YouTube for a while, but now we're on the broader platforms and we just want to hear from you. Feedback, good, bad, ugly, whatever it might be, I'd really appreciate it. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. Thanks a lot, safe riding, and I'll see you next time.